Hello there, it's John Dykeman. I'm happy to speak with you again. There's a topic I've been thinking about a lot, and that is the role of the architecture and design process when we're using AI coding tools. I happen to love AI coding tools, and I've played and learned with several. As an experienced software developer, I feel like AI coding tools give me superpowers and help me to go fast, way faster than I could by hand. And I love that feeling. And I love that it has restored the passion that I have for code and software development. That's something I haven't felt for a few years. And so it's amazing to be hands-on with code again. I love it. I love that feeling. Anyone who's starting with AI coding tools typically starts with vibe coding. Write me some code that does this or that. And that's a fun process. But I happen to know that architecture is super important as part of planning and design. The other context to this is that many of my clients are talking about replacing their software as a service solutions. And in some cases, my clients have hundreds of them. Not just the giant platforms that you've heard of, but many, many much smaller ones. And they see a cost opportunity for rebuilding or replacing. And those become interesting ideas to explore. In doing that, I think an architectural starting point might be better than saying, write me a replacement for this software as a service solution. So rather, I put Claude Code, a tool I love and have great respect for, alongside IBM Bob. IBM Bob is IBM's multi-model AI coding tool capability. I like it very much. It is a little differentiated, and we will explore how the architectural thought process is experienced in both Claude Code and in Bob. It's a little different. So let's have a look. The only thing I've preloaded here is this prompt. And the question is very specific. What are the architectural considerations for designing a replacement for Box in my organization? Again, I have nothing against Box. I love it as a tool. I use it all the time. It's an interesting case study. That's why I've done this. So I'm asking that question. And right away, Claude is giving me interesting thoughts about the architectural decisions I will need to work through. And at the end of the thought process, it gives me refining questions. So there's nothing wrong with this answer. It's very high level. But let's see how IBM Bob approaches the same question. I've logged into Bob and I've asked exactly the same question. Because I have a very high resolution monitor, I've blown up the size of the text, so my screen does look a bit crunched, but I want you to be able to read what we're seeing here. So I'm going to ask Bob to run this. Now, here's the difference. Right off the bat, Bob is asking, John, why do you want to do this? Tell me up front, what's your context for these decisions? And so the primary use case I have is internal team collaboration, and that will guide my architectural decisions. Why? What's motivation? Cost, consolidation, sovereignty. feature gaps? I'm going to say it's actually sovereignty, because I work with very highly regulated firms, some of whom have data requirements and processing requirements in countries where there are no cloud services they could consume. So, and there are equally maybe governments where isolation and data protection becomes super important. There's a separate IBM solution called IBM Sovereign Core that speaks directly to this capability that I'll have to tell you about another time. But I'm going to say on this occasion that my primary motivation is data sovereignty. Where am I going to host the replacement system? And IBM is all about hybrid cloud technologies, as you may know. OpenShift is one of the best hybrid cloud capabilities that exists anywhere. So I'm naturally going to choose that. So I'm going to say some of this workload could run in cloud services where that's a possibility, and others will need to run in an isolated or controlled on-prem environment. Are there specific requirements? Well, yes, actually. So I've chosen a stringent set of standards. And now it's asking me, well, what's the data volume? And I'm going to say that it's medium size. I've got, 5,000 users sounds good for my private storage use case. Okay, now we are getting some real interesting context coming out. And Bob has gone right to helping me think about the architectural design decisions. And you can see this playing out on the screen right now. Now, this process of guiding me through relevant context right from the outset potentially focuses my architectural thought process in a way that is very, very relevant to my needs. Now, as we close, Bob has offered to write this up as a formal plan document. I'm going to ask for that. Okay. And one thing I'll note while Bob is doing this, we're in planning mode. Planning mode is generally the step I'd recommend before we start coding. Of course, we can go straight to code, but planning helps us understand the architectural decisions we're going to need to make. And I've asked Bob to do something quite complex here, so it will take a little time. All right. So our plan, our architecture plan has been written. Let me find it. Sorry. Oh, here is the file. Okay, good, good, good. Sorry about that. Took me a moment to get there. So you can see that there's a lot of detail that sits under this plan. Right, and the other thing I want to go back and just revisit earlier in the way that Bob answered this were the diagrams that were generated. The other question I want to ask before I go is, help me consider the ROI from undertaking this project. And it started to, again, ask for context. And again, this is helping me walk through. So we probably hired 2 engineers to run this service. Let's imagine. Do we have infrastructure? We're going to procure the infrastructure. And my main reason for doing this is compliance risk. So I'm going to emphasize on that. And I just want you to see here that this is extraordinarily useful information. It's great as a baseline. It's great as a way of framing our thought process. These answers don't have to be completely right. They are there to help us think through the important topics, the important questions, and give us reasonably good guidance. And so I love being able to ask questions like this in a coding tool, because ROI is one of the major reasons why we are going to take action in the first place. It probably is the first reason to take action, because if there's no ROI to undertaking these projects, why would we do it unless we absolutely have to? And yeah, I'm going to add the ROI section to my document. And with that, we will let Bob finish. And I will say thank you very much for watching. Let me know if you have questions. Let me know if you have thoughts on this. This is just one idea about how to approach complex software development that says that context and planning should be the starting point. See you next time.